Hello and welcome to NBA Today with Cameron Sadeghi. I am your host, Cameron Sadeghi here, and we have a lot to talk about and a guest, arguably one of the greatest guests we're going to have on this show. He is from bballbreakdown.com. Those of you may know him from YouTube. Coach Nick. He breaks down games, breaks down tapes of games, and he's really in-depth, really educated about the game of basketball, and he's going to be with us on the show to talk about the game of basketball, LeBron James, Michael Jordan. We'll talk about that. We're going to talk about Dwight Howard's development. We're also going to talk about, many other things on the show today as well. And Coach Nick really, I can't believe Coach Nick really, we've tried to get him on, and he's really done a solid job. He's really a great guy, and we're really happy to have him on at 10 a.m. Pacific time here, but we got some topics to talk about before we get to Coach Nick. And I want to start off with the Cleveland Cavaliers. They officially have Andrew Bynum on their squad for $24 million. Bynum, yes, his knees are really bad. So he signed this 2-year, $24 million contract with the Cavs. And his knees are just, they're god-awful. But he's going to be with the Cavs. He's guaranteeing that they're going to go to the playoffs. I think that's a fair assessment, considering how good this team is. I mean, if you look at this team, you got Bennett, Irving, Waiters. It's a really, really solid unit for the Cleveland Cavaliers, as they really have done a great job over there developing as a team. So, and now with Mike Brown, Mike Brown's a really good, solid defensive coach. He'll bring a defensive attitude and a defensive mindset for this team. So, he's really, really solid. Okay. By the way, Coach Nick is listening to this right now. He said, "This is hilarious that you emailed me in the middle of the show," by the way. Yeah, I did. Sorry about that, for that interruption there. But Bynum, again, with the acquisition, I don't really know what to make of this. If you really, I don't even know how healthy he is. The workout, I saw a little footage of it, and it was just normal jump hook here, jump hook there. It was basically, it wasn't incredible. I didn't get to see the whole entire thing, so I think the Cavs are really paying him off of what has been done before and potential, but they really don't have true, data that they can work off of, because Bynum, missing that entire year, it's going to be so hard to get back in basketball shape. And as we know, Bynum has been criticized in the past for his inability to, necessarily be in shape. He's been criticized for his ability to run up and down the floor, and I've been really critical of Bynum. I just don't know. I think even without Bynum, this team's got a chance for the 8th spot. They have a chance for the 7th spot. The East is kind of weak. A little bit. It's gotten better. Detroit, I think they could have a chance for the playoffs. Boston, you never know. They could barely slip in. So we don't know, but the East has never been a very strong conference after the first 4 teams, the first 4 or 5 teams, and then after that, really lower tier teams in this league. I just don't think that Bynum is going to have as big of an impact as the Cavaliers are indicating or they're looking for. It's really hard to get in basketball shape that quickly for a guy who missed out an entire year. He didn't even play 1 minute in the preseason. So when it's like that, when you have a situation like that, it's going to be very hard. I don't know defensively if he's going to be able to perform really well in this Mike Brown. I just don't know yet. There's so many unknowns with Bynum. You can't really gauge how well he's going to do. So it's really a huge problem there in Cleveland long term. I think next year they could make the playoffs, but who knows? Who knows? In other news, Andrew Bynum's former teammate from the Los Angeles Lakers, Kobe Bryant, will he return in the preseason? Jim Buss says yes. He told NBA TV on Thursday that Kobe could be coming back probably in the preseason. He's not going to rush anything. That's what Buss said. Buss is kind of speculating, but it's a possibility. I don't think he's going to start in the preseason. To me, personally, I would shut Bryant down or make this a very patient, calm process for Kobe. He's gone through so much in his career with the wear and tear, with these knick-knack injuries, that it's almost, I think the Lakers need to perform justice, and what justice would be to sit Kobe Bryant down for as long as possible, because you need to preserve this guy in order to gain success later on. I just think it's a bad move if they rush him, throw him out of the Wolves. It's really difficult, and then he's going to be in an uphill battle, and he's so offensively, with that killer mindset, he's so demanding of the basketball that he's going to try to play hero ball at times, and at times he's going to force the issue, and it's not going to end well because he's going to be even slower than what he is right now. Kobe should shut it down, and I personally think if they rush this, it could really hurt the Lakers franchise down the future. Down the line, because you look and everyone's saying Carmelo and LeBron are going to come to LA in the next free agency time period, which I totally disagree. I don't think that's going to happen. Not both of them. That's kind of ridiculous for that to happen. Really, both. It's a possibility. It's a stretch. Look, if you put Kobe in the Wolves and he gets injured again, then who wants to come to LA? When you look at it from a free agent perspective, if there's no Kobe and it's just Gasol, he's going to be aging, and then Nash is going to be gone. It's just going to be a bad process for this team, and they got to sit him down quickly. They got to make sure he's healthy. I'm saying supremely healthy before he comes back. So, if I'm the Lakers, and I'm a Laker fan, don't think that you're going to have a chance this year to make the playoffs, because quite frankly, you're not. There's no way. You're going to have so many rotating lineups, a bad bench. I can't trust this Laker team. I know I'm very critical of the Lakers, but I just don't like the makeup of that team. It just really, I don't know if they can get through the regular season. Nick Young is really a big-time scorer. In my opinion, the guy can really create off the dribble and create his own shot. He can't create for others necessarily, but he can create his own shot late in the shot clock, which is really impressive. Nash, I don't know if he can play solid defense. I've been very critical of Nash's defense. I don't think Nash can guard Ty Lawson for 40 minutes, 35 minutes, 30 minutes. I don't know if he can guard Russell Westbrook. Really, that's a big challenge for Nash. So they just have a lot of matchup problems and a lot of matchup issues that are really derailing the Lakers, and they're really going through a tough process there in Los Angeles. Brandon Jennings from Los Angeles, he and the Bucks are going through some issues, but he's going to have to stay for another year, according to Kurt Helen of Pro Basketball Talk, NBC Sports. He says that, Bucks and Brandon Jennings and the Bucks are going to go. They're going to stay. $4.5 million qualifying offer. So Jennings can be traded during training camp or during the middle of the season still, but this could be a disaster. It really can, because I've heard so many people talk about this. Tank for Wiggins. You've been hearing that all the time, and some people are saying that the Bucks should do that. Hey, look, I'm not a big guy on let's tank games, but I can understand where someone is coming from. With this Jennings issue, they got to find a way to get him out there. Just get him out. Jennings is a great guy. He really is. He's a solid worker. He's really done a great job for that organization, but when greed sets in, with that on both sides, and trying to get their own way, they're gonna have to part ways. I don't think Jennings wants to suffer in Milwaukee. You can tell Jennings is really impatient. He wants to go somewhere where he can win. I know that sounds so obvious. Everybody wants to go somewhere where they can win a championship and all that. But I think Jennings is kind of tired with the organization. He just can't get over the fact, first round loss again. Missed the play. First round loss. I think he's just gotten fed up. And then with no Ellis, that team last year against Miami, by their standards, they played really well. But that wasn't good basketball. You look, Jennings, to me, and I heard Kenny Smith say this from TNT during the playoffs. He said Jennings doesn't know how to set the tempo. And that's the one element that Brandon Jennings is missing to become a great player. I really agree with that statement, because Jennings, at times, the game would get out of hand against Miami. When Miami would start making that comeback and the turnovers started to get a little crazy, Jennings tried to speed it up and see if they can get back by the fast break game, and just didn't really have the poise down the stretch. If Jennings just calmly, hey, back dribble, reverse dribble, let's get into the flow of the offense, let's get a good set, let's get a good shot, it's all going to be good. But when they started getting down, they started to take bad shots, they started to make bad plays, not fundamental, silly turnovers, it really hurt the Bucks. And if Jennings can understand in the future, the tempo of the game is the most underrated aspect of basketball. There's no, you talk about, if you want to be a championship point guard, I know people say, Mario Chalmers, he's terrible, he can't do anything. Mario Chalmers, he's not an all-star, he's not that good, Cameron, he's okay. He doesn't really do anything that special. Hey, I know LeBron plays point forward, and he takes the ball up and he kind of gets them in the flow of the offense sometimes. But Mario Chalmers, he knows, hey, the game's getting a little out of hand, let's slow it down. There's no need to rush, let's slow it down. Chalmers understands. Hey, Chalmers may not be an all-star, but that element of the game that you need to understand and become a championship point guard is very, very special. That's an aspect of the game that many people don't know how to master. But Chalmers does, which is kind of surprising. Jennings is still trying to find it. So, yeah, it's just... To me, it feels like this team and the Bucks and Jennings, it's not going to end pretty. It really isn't. This is a really bad situation here in Milwaukee, and I hope that they can resolve this as soon as possible. I mean, I really wanted to talk about Brandon Jennings today because I promised on the last show we talk about Jennings, because Jennings, he just adds so much to any squad, and I think he's the most underrated, one of the more underrated players in the NBA. I mean, you look at the major networks, they don't talk about Jennings. I mean, you look at ESPN, they talk about Jennings for like 2 minutes in 1 week. I mean, come on, you should be talking about this guy as much as Andrew Bynum. I know that may sound a little crazy, but hey, I'd be talking about Brandon Jennings as much as Andrew Bynum. If you want to talk about any of the topics here, you can call 949-456-2911, 949-456-2911, or you can comment on the green bubble. You can click the green bubble, type away. I want to hear your comments, questions, anything, any concerns, anything you want to say. Coach Nick in 13 minutes. Here we're going to talk about the Clippers offense with Doc, JJ, Redick, Jared Dudley. How will the makeup of that team be? What sets are they going to run with Rivers? And we'll talk about Dwight Howard and his progression. Look, with this Dwight Howard issue, it's unbelievable how many people are ripping him. I mean, it's just flat out ridiculous. I don't like it when people say, you protect athletes too much, Cameron, or you're too nice to them. Let me tell you this. I hate how in the media today, the sports media today, we rip on athletes like crazy. I mean, it's ridiculous. Okay, LeBron went to Miami. Who cares? You don't need to burn his jersey. You don't need to cry about it. Who cares? He made a decision to advance his career. Dwight Howard went to Houston. Who cares? He's trying to make his basketball career better. He wants to be in a better offense. He wants to be with Kevin McHale. I would want to, too. I mean, if you think about it, these athletes in the free agency era, we'll talk about this later on in another show, but I just want to give you just a little bit of my take here. In the free agency era, particularly in the game of basketball, there is no sport where athletes are criticized the most in the free agency era for making a decision. Okay, if you had a job as a recruiter, okay, and you have a choice between an agency or a great company, which one are you choosing? Choose the great company. Should people criticize you for making that move? No. So then why are fans, members of the media, icons in music, entertainment, sports, legends, they're all doing making these crazy statements. Ice Cube saying, hey, Dwight Howard, blank, blank, blank. I'm not going to say the words he uttered because then we'd be banned off the air. You know, you won't win a championship before Kobe Bryant. Magic Johnson kind of brutalizing Howard. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar saying that the shell life for Howard is over, and he made some remark that really I don't understand at all. Shaquille O'Neal saying that Howard went to the small city, that Houston's a small town, and that LA, he couldn't handle the bright lights, which is, in my in my opinion, one of the worst statements I've ever heard come out of his mouth. Then you have Mark Cuban saying a day ago, hey, Dwight Howard, we're better off with Dwight Howard. What are you talking about? You're not going to make the playoffs anyway. Nowitzki is hobbling. Monte Ellis is on your team, and he's going to have to do everything he possibly can to will them into the playoffs. Rick Carlisle is really having a hard time getting the makeup of this team together because so many people are injured and just a lot of turmoil and a lot of chaos in Dallas. And now you're saying this. Why? Why is the basketball community turning on Howard's back? It doesn't make sense. In 2011, 2010, I said and a lot of people thought I was crazy. LeBron, I'm happy with the decision you made. I don't care the way you did it. I'm happy what you did because you want to advance your basketball career. Howard, same thing. I'm proud of you. I don't care what anyone else says. I don't care if people say, oh, look at Howard, he's terrible. He's this, he's that. He's making a decision to advance his career. That's life. Deal with it. And for Cuban to say this is really uncalled for. You know what? Sometimes I love Mark Cuban, and sometimes I just hate the guy. I really do. When Cuban went on First Take and was talking about basketball, zone defenses, talking about the matchups they use against LeBron and all that, I was like, wow, that's great. You know what, Mark? You really understand the game and you really add a lot of insight, and I love that. But this statement makes him look like he's one of the worst owners in sports. It really does. Just god-awful. Awful. Cuban should be ashamed of himself. I've supported Howard for a long time. I've supported LeBron through the thick and thin. I'm not one of those people who likes to flip-flop. Hey, this guy, I like him now. I hate, like Magic Johnson, I like this guy, but now I hate him. Now, you get Skip Bayless. Oh, I love Kevin Durant, now I hate the guy. He's not strong enough. He needs to add more meat on his bones. He needs to do this. He's a mentally weak superstar. What is this junk? If they can play, credit them. If they can't play, criticize. That's all it is. Durant, great player. I love the way Durant plays. I think he does so much offensively. He's really, the only gap in his game is body positioning. I think sometimes, he doesn't get in the right areas where he can maximize his potential. And I think that's partially Scott Brooks' fault because, in a sense, he's not getting freed up. If I'm Scott Brooks, I set one or two screens on Durant's defender just to free him up so he can catch the ball in the area where he can perform at his best. Why don't we ever criticize the coaches? Why don't we ever criticize anyone else? It's always the superstar. It's always the superstar. It's really bad. It's really awful that in today's age, in today's sports, in all this, we always have to blame the superstar. It's always Tony Romo's fault in football. Right? Always. Always. Oh, LeBron? Not clutch. Hey, I remember in 2011, it was a regular season game against the Utah Jazz. This was for the game-tying shot. LeBron had the ball in his hands, came off of a pick, gave a beautiful pass, pocket pass, right to Udonis Haslem. 15-foot jump shot, didn't go in. Everyone said, why doesn't LeBron take the last shot? He got hedged. He got doubled off the screen. Of course he's going to pass. It's ridiculous. To me, it's unbelievable how people look at the game of basketball. And I hope the guy that we're having on, Coach Nick, what I love about this guy compared to some of these other analysts or pundits or reporters or whatever the case may be in the media, icon, legends, whatever, This guy, Coach Nick, breaks down the game from a strategical perspective. He doesn't break it down with this, look, excuse me to use my language, and I'm probably going to regret this, the BS that they use, and they say, oh, look at his attitude, Westbrook is a terrible person. It's just so annoying. We're going to have a guy who actually knows the game of basketball and talks about the game of basketball and breaks it down. Okay, not this junk that we get from some of these legends and these It's ridiculous. There are some media members who I really respect. They do a solid job. There's some legend. Hey, Dr. J should be an analyst. I don't know why, but he's not an analyst, but he should be. Coach Nick should work for a major network. I don't know why. He should work for TNT or something. Instead, you get Magic Johnson come on these ABC airwaves talking about, oh, look at Howard. He's not able to, gather himself, and he's not a good player because his attitude, and he doesn't have the killer attitude to win. And then you get Shaq saying, he smiles too much. Who cares? Just talk about the game. Let's move on. We're going to get Coach Nick in 4 minutes, but I want to break down something really quickly. This guy's not a superstar, but hey, this guy's a big-time player off the bench. Nate Robinson. He hasn't been signed yet, which is a travesty. I may rant about this too. 2 rants in one day. No, I'm not going to rant about this, but Robinson really, again, the energy, the spark. Does Robinson take some bad shots? Yes. I mean, of course. But does he... look what he did in the playoffs. Brooklyn played some pretty good defense, and when Robinson had to create a shot late in the shot clock, he really made some big-time plays with his shot-making ability. Nate, he's one of the more... he comes through during desperate times, and I think Nate would really be a good acquisition. If you're going to be a championship team, I know it didn't work out well in Oklahoma City. I still don't know why Nate didn't do that well in Oklahoma City. I think at that time he was facing through some injuries, but if he goes to a team like a Memphis, maybe the Houston Rockets, a team like that who wants to make a championship run, and they're desperately trying to make a championship run, I think it would be really necessary to go pick him up. Chicago should, but I don't know what the wait is. Nate Robinson even said to CSN Chicago that some things are left better mystery, to not know where you are going to be. So, yeah, Nate's really a great player. I hope he gets picked up soon, and I hope he doesn't go to like a Charlotte. I'd feel really bad for him if he went to like a Charlotte, because I think he deserves one more championship, because he's just provided so much for these teams. Of course the Bulls, but what they did against Miami Game 1, I know they lost the series, but banged up, all that, really Herculean effort by Nate Robinson. And also, some funny news, too. Nate Robinson signing a baby at Summer League. Only Nate Robinson. Nate Robinson, Rasheed Wallace, colorful personalities. When you don't expect something, they're usually doing it. I'm going to put some music on, and we'll get Coach Nick on to talk about the Clippers offense, to talk about Dwight Howard's progression, and then we'll talk about, yes, I know, Jordan and LeBron, but I want to break down the differences between the two. And on that note, let's take a quick break. Joining me right now is Coach Nick from B-Ball Breakdown. As you know, he's broken down so many games, educated so many people about the game of basketball, and he's here with us today. How was Summer League action for you? And I saw some of your interviews. How was that experience for you, and how many times have you been to Summer League?
Just a spectator, and then this year I went again with the media credentials. So, it's been 3 years of observing games and talking to players and coaches, and it's a really an incredible time. There's just guys that's standing around. You look over your shoulder, there's Jeff Hornacek sitting there, or Mike D'Antoni, or Tom Thibodeau, or Harrison Barnes, or Andre Miller. And so you can just kind of walk up to them and talk to them, at least, when you're back in the media area. And it's a really just a fantastic opportunity to get to talk to guys in a very relaxed setting.
Yeah, I wanted to talk to you today about the Clippers offense, and as everybody knows, Doc Rivers, the new head coach, and personally, I think with Redick, this Clippers team is going to use Redick really well. As you know, when Doc used Allen with those double screens and those pin-down screens for open jump shots, and actually, when he was with the Celtics, usually the screener for Ray would be hit on the cut to the basket for easy layups too. Do you think that J.J. Redick will be the biggest key to their offense in order to become a championship team?
I think he's going to be a pretty vital cog there, especially because it was funny. I ran into him at LAX, and he was just standing there, and nobody even recognized him. He kind of blends in pretty well. And I walked up to him, and I started talking to him. I said, you must be pretty excited about catching passes from Chris Paul, and his face just lit up because, Chris Paul is not only one of the best point guards, but he's also one of the most accurate passers out there. So the question really is, what's the starting lineup going to look like? I think he's going to get a legitimate shot to start, but either way, he'll get significant minutes, and there's no question that with him running around screens in that Ray Allen role, it'll put a lot of extra pressure on the defense, and that should open up things for everybody else, like Blake Griffin. With he down screens, he should be able to loosen up and get lobs or easy shots to the basket. It should open up some stuff for Chris Paul. And so I'm sure they're very excited to have that, and they should be much, much better this year offensively than they were last year. Although what I've been saying on Twitter is that it's possible they don't win as many games. New coach, a lot of new players. There could be some adjustment time, and they might not win. They won a lot of games this past year, even though they weren't really built for the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, of course that's true. The team chemistry and how they have to develop there too with the chemistry. But you mentioned Griffin, and a lot of people, I think this is I don't understand why people would call him soft. I just think that Griffin last year struggled with the difference between good shot selection and bad shot selection. There were times where Zach Randolph would put him in a situation where, Griffin, I heard Kenny Smith talk about this on TNT, saying you should play the game like you have no athleticism, and you should use athleticism as a bonus. I think Griffin, and I know this isn't a word, but I'm going to use it anyways, tries to out-athleticize other players, and I think that's what he did with Randolph, and it really didn't work. Do you think that Griffin still doesn't recognize the difference between good shots and bad shots, or was it just the simple fact that Randolph was just a tough matchup for him and that he'll be able to adjust later on?
Well, I think when you're looking at as far as Blake Griffin offensively, he's going against the best defense in the league. So it's not really just Randolph per se. It's the entire defense. And so certainly he has things to work on. If you look at the numbers, though, they're still pretty staggeringly good. I don't want to say he's one of those guys that gets a lot of numbers and doesn't do anything to help the team win, because I think he does. But there's no question that if he continues to improve the way he has with his outside shot, and if he does any amount of improvement in the post with his footwork, which I think is atrocious, then he has to be in the conversation for top 20 power forward in the league. So he's on his way. He's just finished his third year. He actually had a little bit of a dip in performance this past year as I'm looking at his numbers, and that was a little shocking to me because I kept thinking he was progressing farther, but his numbers in points and rebounds went down. So he has something to prove without question, and I have no doubt that we'll see improvement. The thing I'm going to look at right away for Blake Griffin, though, is the post-up. Will he stop jumping off of 1 foot with his back to the basket while he's elevating? And then he has to twist in the air, double pump off the glass, hopefully make it. And those are really tough shots.
Yeah, and a lot of people have also criticized DeAndre Jordan's game as well, saying it's just all about the free throws. I still think DeAndre Jordan has more to work on. Everybody's just saying, oh, Griffin and DeAndre Jordan, they just need to work on free throws. I think it's way more than that. I think DeAndre Jordan still needs a better low post game. He's working on his baby hook, jump hook often. Do you think that DeAndre Jordan needs to be a huge offensive force, or do you think that DeAndre Jordan really doesn't need to have a huge factor offensively for this team to possibly get to the NBA Finals?
Well, I think he showed some improvement. He had a nice little jump hook with the right hand I saw in the beginning of last year, but he definitely tailed off as the season went on, and I think that the free throw thing became a real big issue. It's a little bit surprising to me because his form is fine. There's nothing to do with the mechanics that are making him miss those shots. So it has to be some sort of a mental block that he's having that he needs to overcome. But that said, I like how he plays. I think he does very nicely. They do a lot of lobs. He's a threat for that at all times. He tries to block every shot, which I don't have a problem with. If I were a coach and I had a guy who was really hustling and getting out there to try and influence shots all over the place, that's okay with me. And so I think I would expect him to have another improvement. He improved about 1.5 points per game last year, even though he played less minutes. So I would suspect that he needs, the 27, 28 minutes a game instead of the 24 and a half he got this past year. And I think he will continue to develop. I think his confidence will grow. And that, in my mind, equals, better free throw shooting. It's all about what's going on in his head as far as I can tell.
And I want to ask you about the bench, too, for the Clippers. I don't know if you saw the segment where on TNT they were making fun of Jamal Crawford's dribbling, over-dribbling, taking tough shots, kind of going out of the offense a little bit. Do you think that Doc Rivers and this coaching staff will make sure that Crawford doesn't go out of the offense too much and stays within himself? Or do you think that what Crawford did last year is something that they're still going to need heading into next year?
Well, I think that's a good question, and I think coaches have tried for his entire career to rein him in. In the beginning of last year, it looked like it might have helped. He started to really take better shots, and he was hitting them, and it was helpful. And I think again, he kind of tailed off toward the end of the season as well as with his shot selection. So, if there's anybody that's going to command respect from Jamal Crawford, it would be Doc Rivers. So I suspect that they'll come in there, they'll run a little bit more of a organized and purposeful sets on offense, and that will, in theory, channel his shots into better shots. I mean, Jason Terry isn't the best example of that, but you can see, he struggled with that coming over from Dallas. And I would suspect that Jamal Crawford, in the beginning at the very least, will struggle mightily with trying to figure out how to get a shot. And it's going to be one of those things where if they can figure it out and get him to buy in, then they're in the conversation for the upper echelon Western Conference teams.
Coach Nick here, NBA Today with Cameron Sadeghi. I want to segue to, yes, I know Houston, where Howard has been criticized, taking shots at. I mean, you got guys like Ice Cube, Magic Johnson. I don't value Ice Cube's basketball opinion whatsoever, but you have Magic Johnson, Kareem, Shaq, lots of people taking shots. I mean, I just think that, personally, yes, Howard has a lot to work on, but I feel like this is going to work out in Houston. I feel like this team could be a championship contender. I think the offense is way better. I feel like the bench is better for Houston than it was for him in LA. Do you think that Howard's progression will continue, or do you think that, according to Kareem, his shell life, his potential is done? Do you think that Howard's development will improve, or do you think it'll tail off?
Oh no, I think he'll improve. He'll bounce back to his 2010 form. We started to see it. I mean, listen, the guy gets criticized to no end. I'm in LA, and that's all I hear left and right. But listen, the guy had major back surgery, came back early, and clearly shouldn't have come back, and was brave enough and tough enough to try it. And so as the season went along, and he did get a little bit better, and remember, the only thing that would have really accelerated his healing process was rest, and which he was not getting. So, but as the season went along, he did get better. We started to see some of that old Dwight toward the end of the year, and there's no doubt in my mind that he will, if that healing process has continued and gotten better, then he will be terrific, and he will be dominant on the defensive end. If they can get him to buy in and screen and roll high and dive to the basket, which is his bread and butter, then they're going to be a very formidable team. I think they're still a little bit thin as far as top players. They have, him. They have. I really like Chandler Parsons. Harden, I like. Ashik is going to be very valuable. But after the first 5 or so, it does get a little bit thin compared to some of the other teams in the West. So I'm not so sure they're ready to compete all the way across the board yet, but there's no doubt in my mind you're going to see a different Dwight Howard this year.
We talked about Nate Robinson, too. Look, I'm just putting a hypothetical out there. If you put Nate Robinson on the Rockets, do you think that elevates them to a championship level, or do you think just simply getting Nate Robinson won't really move them up or down?
Well, Nate actually moved the needle for me a little bit this past year with the Bulls in the playoffs, because for so long I pretty much had written him off as a guy who's just a real gunner off the bench, not a guy who you want to be a point guard running your team. But he did display the ability to get a team in an offense and showed some restraint, even though, again, there were times when he needed to just go off. So, I've changed my tune a little bit on him, and I think that he could help somebody, but I really feel like for him, his best situation is coming off the bench, 20 minutes in a game, providing that spark, that energy, and more scoring. So that's, sort of, that could help them, but it probably doesn't shore up exactly what they're looking for, because remember, they're looking for a facilitating point guard that can get everybody to go off first. Jeremy Lin is kind of that way, although Patrick Beverly, I thought, outplayed him in the playoffs. So there's going to be a real interesting competition there to start the year between Jeremy Lin and Patrick Beverly, and also Aaron Brooks played relatively well. So they actually might be okay in the point guard department with what they have going into training camp.
Do you think that Howard needs to develop a jump shot? Because I remember seeing Howard take some bank shots a little bit in Orlando, and I saw a little bit in LA. Do you think that Howard needs to develop that type of game, or do you think the type of player that he is now, will lead him to a championship in the future?
I mean, does he need it? I'm not so sure. If he developed an outside jump shot of something like the 15 feet, would that make him better? Absolutely. So, the context and how he fits into this team, I don't know if they necessarily need him shooting from the outside very much at all. In my mind, they should have him blocking shots, getting 14 rebounds a game, and then on the offensive end, high screen roll and get a lot of those dunks, and maybe kick out to 3 every once in a while. Now, if he really insists on doing the post-up stuff, which I don't think he's that great at, then yes, he's going to have to develop a bit of a turnaround or face-up jump shot game, because as it is now, that's the best way to be a well-rounded post-up player, and he'll have a lot of trouble if he's going to ignore that whole aspect of his game.
Lastly, do you think that Shaq's claim of he needs to average 28 and 15 is absurd, or is that relatively a good statement to make considering Howard's talent?
Well, he broke it down pretty succinctly on TNT when he said, all that is what, 7 points in a quarter, and then how many rebounds did he say?
15.
15, and that's 4 rebounds in a quarter. That's all very doable for him. Certainly the rebounds. So I don't think it's that out of the ordinary, especially with the pace the Rockets want to play at. So I think easily, if his back is healed, which I think it appeared that it was happening toward the end of last year, he should be at least, 22, 23 points a night, and at least, 14 rebounds a game, at least. And I don't think that's very I think that'd be easy for him.
I want to move on to, this isn't really in the news, but Jordan and LeBron, a lot of people, constantly debate about these two. And, I'm not saying that Jordan is not, I'm not saying that LeBron is better than Jordan, but I feel as if LeBron is kind of, thrown to the side here. I think a lot of people are saying that, LeBron will never even get close to that level, or LeBron's not even in the stratosphere. I think that LeBron's a better passer. I think that LeBron's a better defender. Maybe, LeBron does have gaps in his game. Yes, you can run him off screens. Yes, he may not be the best denier, but I still think that LeBron should be in the conversation. Do you think that when people say LeBron's not even close to that level, do you think that's a little over the top, or do you think that's just right?
I think you can put him in the conversation, but not. I think this finals separated him on a lower plateau than Michael Jordan ever was. And I'll tell you one thing. I grew up in Chicago, and I went to almost every game that Michael Jordan played in Chicago. So I had an opportunity to really watch both these guys very closely. And, LeBron has things that he can do that Michael couldn't do, and a lot of it has to do with his body. But let's make one thing clear right now. LeBron was not near as good a defender as Michael was. Not even close. So that's not close. Now, LeBron had a better jump shot earlier. Passing-wise, look, Michael was a really good passer, and once they got the triangle offense installed and he accepted it, he could pass as well as anybody. He would make that pass from the post across court to the corner for three-point shots, just like LeBron did. So, but my thing where I would have to separate them is because they'll probably end up having the same amount of championships, if not LeBron gets more. But, we've seen so many times already in LeBron's career of him sort of shrinking from the moment, is the only way I can say it. And he's so talented, he's able to overcome that and eventually impose his will. But there were times in that finals this year against the Spurs where he looked lost, he looked disengaged. We never saw that from Michael. Michael might not have shot very well in a game, in a finals game, but he was never not fully engaged, completely aggressive, and trying to will his team to win. And I have to tell you, there were moments out there where LeBron was definitely the opposite of that. And those are the moments where completely say, well, that's it. He's a nice player. He's great. He'll go down as one of the all-time greats. But Michael separated himself from everybody else for that reason alone.
Okay, and look, I respect that a lot, but do you think that it's almost unfair to compare in a way because Michael played in arguably the greatest offense in the triangle? LeBron in Cleveland, really, that offense was terrible. Miami, the offense is pretty good, but again, nothing can compare to the triangle with Phil and Tex. And I can make the argument Michael had one of the best supporting casts ever, and LeBron really doesn't have that same supporting cast. Do you think it's kind of unfair to compare just because of the circumstances, or because I think that LeBron is kind of close, but not to that level yet. I just kind of feel bad for LeBron in the sense that of the supporting cast issue. Do you think that plays a factor into the conversation, or it really doesn't have any merit to the conversation?
Well, you don't have to feel too bad for LeBron. I mean, the guy's gone to 4 finals. He's got 2 championships. He's hailed as the best player on the planet. I think he's doing okay. It's almost irrelevant if it's fair or not, because it simply is the argument that people are going to make. That's what sports is about. And so, I also wouldn't say, even those 72-10 team with the Bulls, I don't know if you can say that team was overall that much better than like the team that the Heat had. I mean, look at it. They had Michael and Scotty, which Scotty, again, is probably isn't rated high enough. He's probably a top 10 player. So that's there. You had Rodman, who wasn't even starting by the end of that year. Then you had Kukoc, was good, but he wouldn't be overwhelming, in today's game. And then you throw like Luke Longley, Steve Kerr, those are modest players. They were great. They fit in the role perfectly. The triangle really helped them. And one thing I wanted to say about the triangle is that when you're a good player like Michael, when you're a great player like Michael or LeBron, it doesn't matter what offense you run. The reason why we run offenses as coaches is to help the other guys that need that help to score. And how do we leverage the star? So you can run whatever you wanted with the star, and he's going to get his points. So that's why I'm not so sure I would use that argument as well as the fact that they put the triangle. And in fact, people would probably argue the other way, saying the triangle was stifling, it doesn't let people score. I mean, that's what I hear. I'm a triangle offense coach. So at any rate, so to answer that question, I don't think it's unfair. I mean, I think this is part of the burden they accept when they become professional players. And, this is how the landscape is.
Lastly, do you think, I want to put Kobe into this too, do you think at the end of the day that LeBron will be better than Kobe? Because I feel like LeBron has a few abilities in his game. I don't think that LeBron has as many gaps in his game as Kobe does, because personally I just feel I may think differently than most people, but I personally like the guy who can dominate a game by taking not that many shots. Like, I feel like with Kobe, if he doesn't take a ton of shots, he won't really have as much of an effect as LeBron. To me, LeBron, similar to Bird, he can take 10 to 15 shots and dominate a game. Kobe, I feel like he has to take so many shots in order to have such a big effect. Do you think that when it's all said and done that many will say, you know what, LeBron James on that mountain is higher than Kobe Bryant?
I agree with you. Everything you said was very astute and a great observation. That's true. I don't think there's any holes in Kobe's game. I think the only issue he has is he decides he doesn't want to play that way. LeBron has gotten taken to task at times for passing the ball in crucial situations for other teammates to shoot, when in fact it's the right basketball play, and he always seems willing to make the right basketball play, whereas Kobe has trust issues with his teammates and doesn't want to do that, thinking that the right basketball play is him shooting it because he is that much better. He never quite learned that. Michael had that early in his career, and because Michael did play on some not great teams. But when Michael Jordan finally figured it out around 1990, that's when he elevated the entire team. They went on that big run. So there's no doubt in my mind that LeBron has already figured that out and had had that from the beginning. For whatever reason you want to give as far as upbringing or the way he's formed his basketball knowledge, there's no question that LeBron treats the game as more of a team concept. And in my mind, as a coach, that makes him a better player without question.
And on that note, I'd like to thank you, Coach Nick. Please see his videos, go on his website, bballbreakdown.com, and on YouTube. You got a lot of hits with all your analysis there. B-Ball Breakdown. Coach Nick, we really appreciate it, and we hope to see you down the line.
You got it. Thanks, Cameron. Take care.
You too. So, Coach Nick joining us. I mean, look, I can't go against what he says. I mean, look, I have my opinion. He has his. I do agree with him about the LeBron-Kobe thing. I think LeBron personally, I'd take LeBron over. I mean, we have to wait for them to finish, and I get all that. But just as a player in the style of play, I prefer LeBron James. But again, with the Michael LeBron thing, you know what? I can't doubt him because, again, he did follow Jordan for a long period of time. And you know what was interesting? And I think we'll always keep this. And I learned something new today. Like, when he says offenses are meant for the other guys, but they're not meant for the superstar because the superstar can get his own at any time. I thought that was very interesting because in the NBA, I think more than college and high school and AAU and at the lower levels of basketball, even if you're the star player, you still go with the flow of the offense. In college, you still have to go with the flow of the offense. In the NBA, it's different. And I think what Coach Nick really brought up on the show today really provides a lot of perspective, because you see coaches in college, if you're running a set and you completely go, if you want to get a layup out of the set and you take a three in college, they put you on the bench. In the NBA, they don't do that. It's a totally different game, and Coach Nick really brought up some great points, particularly about the Clippers offense. Yeah, I was very impressed with what he had to say. So, when you, again, with the Jordan-LeBron debate, when he says that Jordan's a better defender, I can agree. I mean, you know what I just have a hard time people saying? Is when people say, LeBron isn't tough enough. I mean, that's, to me, I was going to ask him that, but I knew that he would, what answer? He's probably going to say, hey, that's a crazy statement too. I think LeBron's such a tough competitor as well. Now, is he on the same level of Jordan? I mean, only time can tell. Hey, next year, Coach Nick may say something different. I may say something different. We don't know. Okay? When I said I feel bad for LeBron, some of you may misconstrue that as this guy's just a flat-out protector of LeBron James. No. I personally think that LeBron James gets overly scrutinized in this time period. Because if you put Michael Jordan in this era too, Michael Jordan wouldn't be able... I mean, Michael Jordan would be criticized for everything. For what he wear. I mean, you talk about everything, and I just feel somewhat bad for LeBron in that sense. But no, I don't really feel bad for his... I mean, look, the guy makes tons of money. He's gone to 4 championships. But, again, the criticism is just somewhat overwhelming. It just... Sometimes it's like, enough is enough. Same with the Howard thing. Enough is enough. He says he lives in the LA area, hears it all the time. I hear it all the time, too. If you guys ever watch the channel, Time Warner Cable Sportsnet, you're going to lose... You're going to drop your IQ by 10 points every single hour listening to that stuff. They just criticize Howard like crazy. Coach Dave, there's this guy, his name's Coach Dave Miller. He's just flat out criticizing everything that Dwight Howard does. Everything. I hope that you guys learned as an audience today that I think we need to stop criticizing athletes as much as we do. We should do it from an analytical perspective. It shouldn't matter if they smile or how they carry themselves. It should just matter on the court or on the field of play. And there's one theme or moral or lesson that you learned today from the show. That's what it was on NBA Today with Cameron Sadeghi. And on that note, I'd like to thank Coach Nick. I'd like to thank everyone who's listened. And like always, hasta luego.